Difilm Kitchen, Johannes Sandhofer. Hello. 15 months off benzos, 3 milligrams Ativan a day over 3 years. Okay. So I'm guessing you're taking 1 milligram 3 times a day, but still in withdrawal. Oh, so you're off of it now. Okay. So you were 3 milligrams a day. Okay. Got it. Still in withdrawal. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry to hear that. Now I have to take mirtazapine and Seroquel. Oh no. And I'm so afraid of these two medications. How hard is it to come off these two? Oh, again, this is hard to say, because what I'll say is that when you're 15 months off of benzodiazepines, I would call this more of like a protracted withdrawal. Conventional medicine wouldn't even say that you're still having withdrawal from benzos, but I would recognize it as yes, you are. There's a lot of research out there, benzoreform.com, and then the benzo coalition.org. They have a lot of information on these types of issues. So going there for resources and help. But to your point on these two medications, when I say, oh, I don't know, is because for some people, getting on medications during their, withdrawal from benzos can be very helpful. But in many patients, it can trigger an adverse effect or adverse reaction. So, and there's a lot of fear that happens with this, and so I don't want to scare you, because I recognize that this is happening, because I see people get better. And then, when they're taking medication, especially if your residual symptom is insomnia, and I can understand how frustrating that can be to want to treat and you want to get a medication on board. But then you're right, like if it is helping you, then you're going to want to say, well, I now want to come off of this. What does that look like? Right. And unfortunately, when you already have withdrawals from coming off of a medication previously, your risk is actually going to be higher. So someone who just started mirtazapine and never has been on an antidepressant before, and that, we get them on it for 6 months, their depression resolves, they're sleeping better, and then we taper them off, they're probably going to do well with their taper because they've never had an injury. But someone who's already had an injury and is maybe neuroinflamed, may have a harder time. And so again, I can't calculate how hard it's going to be to come off of them. But what I can say is that if they're helping you and you're getting sleep, you're getting over the hump, so to speak, you're starting to feel better. Don't take them long term. Take them for 6 months, see how you're doing, see if you're ready to start coming off then, and then work with a provider who understands how to do a slow, safe, gradual taper, and also who understands what you've been through with the benzo. So a benzodiazepine informed provider, and then someone who understands how to deprescribe and get you off of those two medications slowly. And if you were working with me, one at a time. Some providers will do 2 meds at a time. I don't think that is appropriate, because it's hard to differentiate then where the side effects are coming from, where the withdrawal effects are coming from, and what we should or shouldn't slow down. So that's the other thing. You would want to do these one at a time. And if I was looking at someone on both mirtazapine and Seroquel, I would start getting them off the Seroquel first and then the mirtazapine, just because Seroquel has a lot more adverse effects, in my opinion. And in my opinion, would risk versus benefit could be doing more harm than good in the long term. So I hope that answered your question. It's very difficult to predict these things and not knowing the whole story, but understanding 15 months off benzos, in my mind, like I said, I'm thinking you may have, some injury going on there from the benzodiazepine. So you just have to be careful. Gary, hi Gary. Michelle, I'm sleeping 12 to 13 hours a day. I can easily sleep more. What is happening? Oh, wow. So you're sleeping more. Well, that's a good thing. Gary, I know your history with insomnia and the struggles that you're having. So there's that little backstory just for people live who aren't familiar and then again wondering. So that's interesting that now you're sleeping 12 to 13 hours a day. Um, and you're easily sleeping more. So these are all good things. These are your connections happening. You were in protracted withdrawal for a long time, probably, still are in that post-acute withdrawal phase. But some connections, are occurring here, right? And your body is wanting that sleep because you had a very long time of dysregulated sleep. It's been, several years of dysregulated sleep, and then coming off of the Ambien, definitely disrupted that as well. But I would say that definitely cortisol. It sounds like that is becoming less of a problem now, and that PS has probably helped quite a bit. And PS is phosphatidylserine, and now you're not fighting that excess cortisol at night, is what I'm guessing. And your body needs the extra rest because you haven't gotten a good night's sleep in a very long time. So this is good news. All right, Kathleen. I live in Kentucky, 9 months off 40 years of 1 milligrams of Klonopin per day. Okay. I'm 83 and have most of the symptoms with no windows and waning and wanting hope and no doctor. My diet is keto for any recommendations. Okay. Well, ketovore. So you're more in that low carbs and which means you have a lot less gluten intake, because gluten can also be problematic. Now, I don't go down those rabbit holes like some people do with the benzo. In the benzo community, where they're like, you have to be carnivore, or you have to be keto, or you have to be. I don't do that. And the reason why I don't do that is because I believe personally that a whole foods diet is the better approach. And what I mean by that is like more of a Mediterranean style diet, because I believe that you do need some of your leafies for your gut health and just for overall health, etc. But I have seen people leverage like keto and carnivore diets, like a short term, quote unquote fix, and then kind of come back into like a whole foods diet. But really, it's what you can tolerate. And oftentimes what happens when you get into this diet sector is that people end up saying, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat that, and then they get wild, and now they're only eating like 4 foods, which we know is not good. So if it's working for you, that's good. Okay. And oftentimes when that is working for you, it's because you're removing gluten, which is a big factor in a lot of people's mental health conditions. Dairy can be another one. For most people. Now, another thing when you're talking about of things that you can do is, as I've mentioned in other lives and even in my videos with the labs, it's very important to then now look at what else could be going on. Obviously 9 months off and you're still having some things happening. That's, a protracted state. It's not uncommon. So I want you to know that this is not uncommon, Kathleen. There's a lot of people like you out there. And that, but when I see people in this state, we oftentimes find some things that we can help correct underneath. So whether that's your cortisol is dysregulated because of what the benzos themselves and then coming off of them have done to your adrenal glands and your whole HPA axis and that response system, oftentimes that is something that we have to look at. Looking at inflammatory markers, like I just mentioned earlier. So homocysteine, interleukin 6, your high sensitivity C-reactive protein, and seeing if are we looking at an inflamed brain? Okay. And then looking at anti-inflammatory foods and supplements and things of that nature to help support you during this time. And with cortisol, I would do diurnal cortisol, like I had mentioned earlier. You could look that up. It's basically salivary samples taken over, the course of a day, 4 different samples, different times to look at your pattern. You could also do that with a urine test as well, to look at other hormones, to get a bigger picture. As well. So I would start, kind of looking there and seeing if there's some things we can help to support it. Oftentimes omega-3s can be very helpful in this case. Magnesium glycinate is very gentle and helpful in the nervous system. And the reason why is because I did a video on magnesium, and magnesium, when you are stressed and you're in that HPA axis, meaning that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis response going on, limbic system's on fire, right? Bum, bum, alert, 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 everything's kind of going off. That causes that dysregulation with the adrenal glands and, with cortisol dysregulation, which causes inflammation. And so therefore decreasing that inflammation and decreasing that cortisol can really help to address that. So you may start to see, some things when you start addressing that HPA axis, that cortisol dysregulation as a factor. And magnesium is used in that HPA axis. Magnesium is one of the minerals that your body will start stealing, so to speak, from your cells to use to help support that HPA axis. And so therefore using magnesium can actually help support that HPA axis adrenal gland system. It can even help long-term regulate cortisol as well. If you're going to target cortisol, to help get it down, especially if it's really high, you can do phosphatidylserine to bring it down, to kind of get over the hump, but you're not going to know unless you look. So definitely looking into some of those things would be something that I would want to do. And then also important that I haven't mentioned yet, that I have in other lives, but I just want to make sure that you realize how important it is the therapy piece, and making sure you're working with someone who understands benzodiazepines, understands this process that's going on underneath, how the brain is just like completely hijacked, right? And so you start going down very easily those rabbit trails of fear, and your mind, starts to become your worst enemy in that case. And so a lot of the work really with protracted withdrawal is done in therapy and in coaching. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of coaches and support out there, but there are some. So Angie Peacock, I had her on the channel. We did an interview. She does individual coaching as well as group coaching. David Powers is another one who does a lot of coaching. He actually has a program that is based off of his book, The Powers Manual. So a lot of CBT principles in there, and ways to help kind of get that limbic system down, like not be in that hyperarousal state so much. A lot of that does have to do with up in here, and not what is the best solution, like what is the best supplement, pill, food, diet. We can go on these rabbit trails on and on and on and on, but really, are we treating what the root cause is at that point, which is the fear? You start to get in a fear, say, am I ever going to get better? And then that opens up Pandora's box. You're now on Google and just feverishly searching for answers. And that just feeds the negativity even more. So if that's what you've been doing, going down that rabbit trail, or anyone else listening, really what you need is support through a coach, a psychologist, a therapist who understands this benzodiazepine, we call it induced neurological dysfunction or injury, or whatever you want to call it, that's happening in the brain, to help you with understanding like how to rewire the brain. Neuroplasticity, like I was mentioning earlier, vagus nerve can actually enhance neuroplasticity in the brain. You can work on the vagus nerve and really do a lot of good work.